Everyone, today I'm gonna show you how to install a system unit. Reminder, this instruction have the purpose of generally explaining how to assemble a computer as the process may differ depending on the components that being used. Step 1. Create a space to work. This is important as all components are small. Probably are flat open space with lots of room to work. Where are you comfortable? Step 2. Installing motherboard or central processing unit. Unlatch the CPU housing and avoid touching the golden contact points. Gently grab the CPU, avoiding the golden pins on the backside. Carefully place the CPU in the housing in the correct orientation which should be marked with a symbol or notches which are on both sides, both the CPU and motherboard. This should fit easily and should need to be pushed in the socket. After the CPU is in the housing, close the latch on the housing. This part may need to be forced and some motherboards come with a plastic piece that will pop off the front once closed. This part should be safe. Step 3. Applying thermal paste. After the CPU is installed, apply a precise amount of thermal paste directly in the center of the front of the CPU. If too much is applied, it will spill over and this can be cleaned with rubber, alcohol, and cotton swab. After the paste is applied, view the instructions that come with the cooling system to finish installation, as all cooling systems differ based on the type of cooling being used. Plug in the cooling system into the motherboard that is labeled CPU or CPU fan header to power the system. If an all-in-one system is being used, there should be a place labeled AIO pump to plug a second cable into. Step 4. Installing the solid-state drive. This step requires you to find the contact points, which should be easily found by looking at the motherboard manual. After the SSD is plugged in, you will want to secure it with the screw that provided. This may require a small amount of force to install. Step 5. Installing the random access memory. Before installing, make sure the clamps that house the RAM are open. Align the RAM sticks so they correspond with the breakpoints on the motherboard. Avoid touching the holding contact points. This should have to be forced and should be fit with ease. Once installed, close the clamps that house the RAM to secure. Refer to the motherboard manual for optimal placement of RAM. Step 6. Installing input-output shield. Before installing, align with your motherboard so it is in the correct orientation with the ports. The I/O shield should come with your motherboard. The place into the case in the correct orientation which should match with the placement of your motherboard. This part will most likely have to be forced into position, but it is important to get secure so the motherboard doesn't fall out in the upcoming step. Step 7. Installing the motherboard in the case. Remove both side panels on the case and place them in a safe place with the screw. Once the interior is visible, tuck away the cords, so the installation is more manageable. Most cases have a noticeable place to place the motherboard, usually noticeable by at least the screw holes that correspond to the holes along the side of the motherboard. Once the fu- once putting the mod once putting the board in the correct orientation, matching the input-output shield as discussed in the previous step. Secure the board with the provided screw, but make sure to not screw them too tightly to avoid damaging the motherboard. The motherboard should be budging once installed. Step 7. Installing additional hard drive. Locate the device where the storage units are placed, which will vary depending on the cost in the case used. Remove the die from the case. Depending on the storage unit you are using, you will have to visit your case manual on how to install them as this varies depending on the storage device used and the type of case. Step 9. Installing additional cooling system. This step also varies widely depending on the size of your case and the slot available for additional fans. Visit the manual of your case for instruction. Orient the fans to make sure the air is flowing into the case, which should be invisible by the crossbars on the back of the fans. Once the fans have been installed, make sure to plug them into the fan headers on the motherboard to provide power. This is also where it might be useful to have zip ties for cord management to keep the interior looking neat. This part this part only applies if you are using an all-in-one cooling system. Once you have your fans installed, attach the radiator to the main fans. The radiator tends to be large, so you want to make sure there are not enough space for it. Step 10. Installing the power supply unit. Slide the PSU into the designated location and make sure the fan is oriented, pointing outside the case. Use the screw provided to lock the PSU into the correct place. The motherboard will have a 24-pin connection that will need to be plugged in, and a 4 to 8 pin connector for the CPU that needs to be connected. The hard drives that you may have to install will require power as well. You will have to connect the cords into the corresponding outlets, which should be labeled. To connect all switches and USB ports, you will have to pull out the cords that were stuck away in step 6. Inspect each cord to find the corresponding port on the motherboard. Step 11. Installing the graphics processing unit. Remove as many barrier slots as you need to depending on the size of your GPU. These slots are located on the outside of the case between the input-output shield and the back of the CPU of the PSU. This may have to be unscrewed or just removed with force depending on the case. Gently pick up the GPU and avoid touching the golden contact points. Align the GPU with the PSI lane, which is on the motherboard and should be running horizontally and be next to the shield previously removed. This should be placed without much force, and once placed, if you remove screw from the slot, the screw should be replaced to secure the GPU. If your GPU has a cord to connect power, plug that into the corresponding slots into the PSU. The build should be now completed. Plug in a mouse and keyboard and connect the monitor to the PC. After it is all connected in the PSU into an outlet and turn it on. If it does not turn on, review all steps and make sure all cords are connected to the right place. And that's all for today's video. Hope you enjoy.